Hi Spencer. Thanks for coming in today to talk about your new work 63 to 67. It feels like a very different direction from your commercial work. Could you tell us what motivated you to make this move?
I think I had a sense that I was falling out of love as regards being a photographer, and I think, after working in the industry for 30 years, it's probably not uncommon, but I wanted to get back in touch with the thing that drew me to photography in the first place as a 14-year-old, and I think that came from fulfilling other people's briefs and a sense that I wasn't really taking photographs of things that had meaning, more in-depth meaning to myself and how I felt. And I had this opportunity. I see it as an opportunity, really, that sort of sense of almost boredom with work. I saw that as a positive thing that I should look at, and sort of giving myself the time to delve deeper into things that had more meaning to me, and creating my own briefs, in effect, creating my own briefs of work that became ultimately more real and had more meaning to me. And I think it's quite self-indulgent, and in the work that I'm doing it's actually quite narcissistic as well, but it did feel very real, on a very deep level, and I just sort of followed that feeling, and so the work has sort of evolved from that.
The work you're making is clearly more meaningful and based on strong childhood memory. Have these memories always been conscious?
A simple answer, no. However, I think the source of the work has always been within me. It's a question of just unearthing it, and for me it's all about the process. So I'll take a photograph that means something to me, and I might not actually intellectually know exactly what that means to me, but I'll continue and use that as a source of delving deeper. And I think ultimately over the years, and I don't think this is a rushed, this project is effectively the culmination of many years of becoming more self-aware, and I think it's a continuing timeline. I'll continue to hopefully become more self-aware, and the images will change according to how I'm feeling at the time. But they are memories, and so realistically, you can't. Even I don't take them literally. Even if one was to take the imagery literally and create a story from each image, I think that'd be quite dangerous, because even as the producer of the imagery and the ideas, I don't take the memories as being real in a real sense. It's the feeling that comes from the memory that's important for me to sort of divulge the world or sort of express.
I'm aware that when we look back through family albums and we look at photographs, they then create a sort of narrative of our history. We sort of begin to understand, piece together our past through looking at these pictures, which obviously are very edited and very subjective, and depends who photographed them. And now it's almost, what I'm hearing is that you're almost creating a new narrative for yourself. And the question really, I suppose, is that a danger that actually you're now creating for yourself a narrative which in some way you may become your truth?
Yeah, I can understand the term danger that you're using, because I do go through, it's a real dilemma for me, because as you've said, you look at your home movies, you look at pictures from the past, and they're usually taken on holiday in happy times. You smile to the camera, no one asks you to look miserable to the camera. In most of these memories in two-dimensional form that you access as regards creating that narrative, as you just said, are from happy times. And I think in a way I'm accessing, a more probably difficult time. And certainly when you look at the images, they can be seen as quite dark.
Are they dark for you?
Well, no, I think they've been hugely cathartic to do. And I think, as I was going to say, if I take those happy memories, in inverted commas, and mix them up with my more real memories that I've expressed, photographically speaking, I come to a sort of a norm, if you like. And that's how I feel about the work. It's just, these may have happened, and they're quite dark stories, but I've also had a very happy childhood mixed in with that. And I think it's just the extremes, I think, I've chosen to access the darker side of my upbringing, and but I think if I take my whole life as a whole, I don't feel like it's particularly a negative thing that I've done. It's just, it feels the truth, but also the happy times are the truth as well, my truth, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, it does make sense. And the next question really is about yourself as the model, because you use yourself in the photographs, and also you're naked. And I just wondered what made you make those choices.
Well, the ideas for the images felt right, and they sort of, I don't know if you've experienced this as an image maker yourself, you probably have experienced it. They come to you in the morning, that you awake with an idea that just feels right. You probably haven't constructed it in your head completely, but certainly these images, they've always felt right. When the idea comes to me, it just felt this is something I have to do, and the image forms in my head. The actual construction of the image is purely a physical thing that I have to organise, talk to people, get the location and light it and shoot it and get help to shoot it. So, but to go back to the question of my appearance in the images, it felt right from the story. It felt right that I had to be witness to it, and I had to be part of it. And it's not an important part of the imagery on the wall, but for me it's been absolutely crucial that I've gone through the experience, and that meant being in the frame. Now I could have, well I did, I have an appalling body image, so the thought of me doing a self-portrait was pretty freaky anyway, and that's probably why I'm a photographer and I'm this side of the lens, generally speaking. But as I said, it just felt right that I had to be part of the process, and to be ultimately part of the process I had to be witness to the scene, which meant I was having to be in the picture. This is what I felt, this is the thought processes I went through. So I had to be part of the scene, and I had to feel really vulnerable. And there was an adult in witnessing a scene from the past, from my own childhood, and I could have cast another protagonist in that part, and I certainly went through the process of trying to get out of it, and it was almost like a internal dialogue going on about should I be in it, should I not be in it, and then the nudity thing was about, well, should I cast a different protagonist, and how would he be dressed? What would this adult look like? And the more I sort of over-obsessed about trying to get out of being in the image, it felt real and true that I should be in the most vulnerable state in the image, and that's basically how I came to the conclusion that that's how I portray myself, as witness to the scene.
You use the word right a lot, and I wonder, is that right? The unconscious speaking.
Yeah, I think mainly it is. It's about what's right. And going back to your first question, the reason why these images are important to me is because I've gone through this process of asking myself quite, for me, meaningful questions. As I said earlier, they're quite narcissistic, but it's almost something that I have to rid myself of. And so asking myself these questions is a very important part of the process. It's not just a question of trying it out lots of different ways, because, as you know, that wouldn't feel right. When I shoot these images, as I said to you, they're formed in my head, and I am quite an experienced photographer, so I don't really have to go through. I can basically light things and shoot things and organise things, so that isn't an issue for me. So once the image is formed in my head, it's just a question of going out there and shooting a few frames, and it literally is that. I'll probably shoot 20 images, and once I've seen it on the screen and emotionally it feels like that is the image that was in my head, and I'll move on to the next one.
It's interesting, lots of the language that you use is around process and around consciousness and awareness, and it sounds as though that the work is almost therapeutic, that there's something cathartic in the making of the image. Would you say that would...
100%.